This example will quickly review some of the basics of using the slope-intercept form to graph linear equations in two variables. On part A, we want to graph the equation y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. To begin with, we need to draw the axes. We need to then draw arrows on at least the positive ends of the axes and label them as well. The final step of setting up the axes is to put a scale on each axis. Please check with your instructor to determine the requirements for this in your class. In this first example, I will simply put a scale of 1, 2, 3 on the x-axis and 1, 2, 3 on the y-axis. Before we begin graphing this particular equation, we should remind ourselves what the slope-intercept form is. In general, we write the slope-intercept form as the equation y equals mx plus b. The b is a reference to the y-intercept. Specifically, the y-intercept is the point 0, b. The m tells us what the slope of our line is. We want to remind ourselves that the slope is usually described as the rise over the run. So in our particular example, we know that the y-intercept will be the point 0, 4, and the m, the slope in this particular case, is negative 2/3. So we'll begin by plotting the point at 0, 4 on the y-axis, and from there we will use a slope of negative 2/3 to move down 2 and to the right 3 to get another point on the line. Separately, we could also move up 2 and left 3 to get a third point on our line. We want to remind ourselves a negative slope should be a slope that goes downhill from left to right. Now that we have 3 points on our line, we can finish by lining up our ruler and graphing the line itself. We should finish our work by drawing the arrows on both ends of the line to indicate that this line goes on forever in both directions. Part A was given in slope-intercept form. In Part B, we also want to graph this equation using the slope-intercept form, but our first step is going to be to solve it for that form. So we'll begin by taking our equation, 3x minus 4y equals 8. The first thing we need to do to solve this for y is to subtract 3x from both sides. Subtracting 3x from both sides would give us negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 8. And then the final step is to divide everything on both sides of the equation by negative 4. That will leave us with y equals a positive 3/4 x minus 2. Now that the equation is in slope-intercept form, we can begin again by first setting up our axes. We'll begin by drawing both axes with a ruler, putting arrows on at least the positive ends of the axes, and labeling them x and y respectively. We'll then pick a scale to put on each axis. Another way to draw the scale of 1, 2, 3 on each axis would be to do 2, 4, and 6 on each axis. Notice that is actually the same scale that we had used before. We're simply identifying it slightly differently. Now to graph this line, we'll recognize that the y-intercept indicated by the equation is 0, -2. So we'll begin at 0, -2 on the y-axis. And from there, we see from our equation that the slope is positive 3/4. So from this y-intercept, I will either go up 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right, 4, or I will go down 3 and to the left 4. Either way, with a positive slope, we should have an uphill line going from left to right. Again, the final step is simply drawing in the line by connecting the dots with our ruler. And as always, we will add arrows to both ends of the line to give our indication that this does extend forever in both directions.